Okay. For those on the stream on YouTube, this is not financial advice. This is just the way I'm looking at the market. And for Origin, this is a bit of an update on the bots and what I'm going to do that can change something up. Just quickly to cover off on the bot stuff. What a fucking shit week. Been looking this morning at what sort of went on. Now, realistically, this started really going bad at this trade here on last Thursday my time, and like when you're looking at this, these strategies were testing fine right back into this area here originally as I was developing them. And when you look on the shorter time frames in here, the moves were bigger, and obviously there's more volume coming through here. But when you got a signal on the shorter time frames, it tended to follow through and at least get, TP1, TP2, or if it got TP1, it stopped out reasonably quickly. So you're still stopping out in profit, or like the second, whatever it is, 80% left over after TP1 gets stopped out at break even or thereabouts. So working really good all through here, and then it's just shit itself on this leg up here. The previous one obviously had a bit of trouble down the bottom here, so we've kind of been slapped twice on this. The change that I made to the stop loss would have fixed the issues down around the bottom here, down around here, but not necessarily. Well, it actually still theoretically works better up here as well. Last night, the short trade wouldn't have got stopped out. So this one here, so that wouldn't have got stopped out if we had had the old 1.5% stop loss on it, and it would have turned into a TP2 short, which would have also meant that exit would have been in profit as well. But, it is what it is. If I change that back to 1.5, this goes down to like 80% net profit. So yeah, it's not something I'm gonna change back anytime soon. This looks like it's about to take a long if we get a vector candle soon, which wouldn't surprise me. Does it pay out? Oh, it looks like we're kind of topping here. That's a bit of a topping signal as well, typically, but anything's possible at this stage, and I'll go into the overall market in a second. What I'm looking to do, look, we've got a week left in this month. I'm just going to let it run. Hopefully things turn around. But what I was going to say is basically the thing that's really chopped us out in these ranges that we've had, whether it be the bottom, the recent bottom, or in these little areas here, is because we're not getting the big swings, and we're not getting the follow through. It seems, I'm not going to say manipulated, but like the amount of times we've had breakouts that have just immediately reversed is abnormal. And when we do swing, we're just not getting the follow through that we would normally have gotten. Just going to look quickly at that. See, that one we still would have just got stopped out before it actually moved down into profit. But like the overall like size of these moves, you might think, yeah, okay, that's a big move, that should be profitable, but you've got to get it top to bottom. In the past, normally when Bitcoin makes a decent move, it will follow through way more than that once you get outside of this Bollinger Band here, which is a 60 period Bollinger Band. I think 0.7 or 0.8 or something factor on it. So yeah, it's just it's just chopping out. You can see here, once we do get a decent move, we do hit those TP levels, we close out in profit still. It's fine, but it's been freaking rare. Like it's not even that we're getting sideways chop over the weekends. We're getting volume and we're getting movement, but it's not enough to actually for this strategy to be taking profits. It's just stopping us out and it's stopping us out and then reversing most of the time, which is one of the most frustrating things ever. So yeah, that's unfortunately just the way it's been working out. Like, as you can see, once it moves, this strategy works really well. It did take a long entry there. Something did. What was that? It's actually a power signal on, and that's something I'll point out as well, which is interesting. I don't know that power signal will work out. So anyway, trading. Sorry, I'm coding up a newish bot. I have had a look at a few things where I'm going to try and make it so it doesn't enter after like 3 vectors in a row, stuff like that. I'm going to try and make it enter more on the first vector outside the thing, but I need to change some of the exit rules and stuff on that as well and test them out. The other thing I've looked at is trying to wait and see what happens on the next candle after entry to take the entry, but in that case, I would have taken the entry there rather than there, and it doesn't really work out. I will look at an exit strategy where it actually just the first vector candle in the opposite direction, it just closes the trade regardless, which would limit some of the damage here. Like you're talking stop loss there rather than up here. You know, this one here would close that trade there. You know, there's certain things like that one there wouldn't have gotten out of the trade. That probably would have closed there, which is still better than where it did close. Just things like that I'm going to try and implement. This one probably would have had a loss, would have closed there, which is only a small loss. But then you've got things like this where, okay, yeah, wanted to enter there. That's actually not a bad entry. Yeah, we got a little retrace, but didn't really confirm below the 50 EMA. And then it's taken off and we got good wins out of it. Now, if you did exit out of this trade here, it would have been a small loss. it probably, well, the idea is it would actually take the trade there as well. But in saying that, the entries that I'm looking at, I want to enter more on this candle here, in which case that probably would have been a small loss still with fees anyway, because I think that's actually a vector candle. Yeah, it is. So it's these little things that I need to build some more smarts around it, so that, you know, maybe if it's above the 13 EMA or the 20 EMA, don't worry about it. Just keep holding the trade and using the normal take profits, which would have meant, okay, I'm not going to close it out there. It's going to keep going, but I would potentially close it out there because it closes below that. I think that's 20 or the 13. And then potentially it would have re-entered here and then ridden it all the way up. Again, probably would have kept going until the vector below 13 EMA. Okay, so yeah, it's just trying to get the exit rules and the entry rules so that we don't get freaking chopped out by all this shit now. Obviously, Biden's not running anymore, which I'm kind of surprised. I thought they would have done what the UK and the French governments did and basically throw the election. Given they're probably going to go into a recession in the next year or two, I would have thought the Democrats would have just thrown it, kept Biden running, and then here we go. So it's actually going in our favor at the moment. This move could take us up pretty close to the all-time highs. Anyway, so going to keep it running. Hopefully we set a turnaround before it burns our accounts completely. This week is the last week that I will leave it running, unless we see a big turnaround in performance. And I'll be working on the other one over the coming couple of weeks as well. Still got a lot of work on though, so it's pretty much just what I can do before I fall asleep at the computer at night. So in terms of what's happening on Bitcoin and general markets, I'll cover that off now. It's interesting because we've just blasted through so many levels that would normally be key levels that would stop Bitcoin in its tracks, or at least produce more of a retracement. Now, this here, I'm on the index, I'm not on the bybit one, because the bybit one didn't actually have vector candles in here. So that on bybit wasn't actually a vector candle, whereas the index, which sort of groups a whole heap together, I think if we go to security info, yeah, so it goes back the whole way. It's a trading view calculated thing. Interestingly, that was a vector candle. So what we did see, this candle here actually retraced the 50% of that, which, you know, that's typically what you would be looking to do. So 50% of it is, yeah, I think. So it has actually retraced the 50%, which is pretty standard retrace on a vector candle. We still haven't cleaned this one up, which is a little concerning. But as I said, back in that area, there was a lot of buying volume that just soaked up the sell volume. So that was our key indicator back there. I'll be looking for that sort of thing at the top as well. But For the time being, like we've smashed through the lower, like that pink band there of the pi cycle indicator. I've brought that back into the charts because that, if we break straight through this level, and there is a chance we could do that, Bitcoin has no problem, breaking straight through key levels when it goes bullish. If we break through, the first target is probably actually going to be close to this top part of the pi cycle indicator, that slow moving average, which, as you can see, is up around 96, 97K at the moment. And it's probably going to be around that 100K mark. So it's doable. I would expect to see a breakout, retrace, and then a move. But as we've seen in the last few days, the retraces just haven't been coming. And when Bitcoin does break out of those levels, those all-time highs and stuff like that, if it's going to go properly bullish, like these sort of levels, it did go sideways a little bit here after the last, or the 2018, 2017 top. But you can see here when it broke out of this, it kept going. A little bit of a retrace. Actually, I mean that's a test of that level. Breakout on a vector, retest of the level, and then move to the upside. Same sort of thing there. It broke out on a vector. Didn't retest though. So don't necessarily think that it has to retest. Even if we get a little bit of sideways chop, that's probably going to be your signal to go long, I would think. But as I said, when we were down here, if you were thinking you should have bought more Bitcoin when it was up here, looking like it was going to break out, then this was a good time to buy Bitcoin. I wish I'd have converted more, but doesn't matter. So the key thing is, like, are we going to get a retrace before we get a breakout? Hard to say. The Bitcoin longs have actually started dropping a little or going sideways. It suggests there's a few people taking profit on this run up. Not a hell of a lot though. Yeah, it's a decent strength move, that one. So we've got a bit of a retrace here. We kind of reconfirmed above that sloping channel that we sort of used to confirm the breakdown there. It will be interesting to see if it breaks out of the Gaussian channel. Like, the Gaussian channel tends to be a pretty reasonable channel. Once it breaks out of and confirms above, then it's normally a pretty decent move. As you can see, it can do fake outs of that as well, but we were directly into some pretty strong resistance there. It's trading differently, Bitcoin, and that could be because it's getting ready for a bull run. That's all I can see at the moment. We are getting pretty good strength on this bullish smart money indicator as well. So that's something to be paying attention to. If this starts to drop off on the longer time frames, then we're maybe in the retrace. But at the moment, this is looking like it could just break straight out. Okay. The other thing in terms of how high on this run, typically if you get 3 big pushes, And I was looking at this going, okay, that's one push, and that's two pushes, and then that's your third push. If we break out above this level and confirm and we go bullish, then you would expect at least the same sort of move up, which would put us at 105,000 on Bitcoin, which is probably going to be pretty close to where this this longer moving average comes in at. It is very lagging. So we may actually hit that. I'd be surprised if we didn't get a retrace somewhere around there. Will that be our top? I don't think so. I still think we've got probably another move to the upside yet after that, but we may actually have some sideways, pretty decent sideways chop. This, I was talking with Misho this morning. I mean, it could be that Bitcoin's going to trade more like a normal market. So we may only have 3 more months for the bull run in earnest, 3 to 6 maybe, if the global economy goes the way it's potentially looking. So we may break all the previous bull runs and things like that. It might be completely different. It might be the same. But that there could be our third leg up. Typically the middle leg is the longest leg. So it would kind of make sense for this to be somewhere around that, I would say 105 to 120K mark, which a lot of people have been calling for, sort of 120, 130K for the top of the bull run. That is looking more and more possible at the moment. The thing will be is what does the adoption give us? So at the moment, it's looking like if you use that middle leg up, the maximum I would expect for this run would be about 150K. All right. So 150K doable on this particular leg if we break out. Now, I do still think we need to break out and just confirm. It might only take a week to confirm and then run again. But somewhere between 105 and 150, which is obviously a massive range, would be a pretty reasonable target. Now, let's just do a fib level on it. I'm going to do it from there to there. And I did that really way, I think. I did. Let's try that again. So let's see what we got here. So breakout levels, the 2236, the 1618. I think we may get a pause there around that 100K. I mean, 100K is a massive number, obviously. Everyone's looking at that as a target, as a first step. That's going to be a pretty good take profit level, I would think. Take some off the table. And then after that, the 145, 128, they're pretty reasonable levels for Bitcoin to come to. There is a small chance what you can do, I'm going to take it from here. So this is another one. So you're looking at the retrace, and then once it confirms above that, where's your next target? So that brings things down a little, but still pretty reasonable confluence on those targets there. I think we'll come somewhere into this 125 to 144 range at least. But as I said, like if the market goes nuts, there's plenty of money floating around, then they're reasonable targets. If the market dumps, there's two potentials. One, Bitcoin just goes with it like everything else. It's a risk on asset. If risk comes off, then Bitcoin will probably drop. The other potential is that Bitcoin is seen as a flight to safety asset, and people actually put money in that. They take it out of stocks, they take it out of gold or other assets, and they put it into Bitcoin. Now, that might be the case. That would drive Bitcoin up quite a lot. The other thing too now is commodity trade advisors. They tend to be momentum based, and if Bitcoin breaks out, then and everything else is going down, they will potentially switch into Bitcoin. So just looking at the other markets, Nasdaq's getting pretty close to our 50 EMA there. Now, I just want to change that to, just change it to a simple because, yeah, okay, it's a bit below. So general normal markets, normal stock markets tend to look at simple moving averages rather than exponentials. I just keep it the same because it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. You're thinking about a cloud anyway around this point. So that is a pretty key level. If we bounce off a 50 EMA at 19,400, then we should be going to a pretty decent run up into the election. The other, we took profit one. That's good. Hopefully it doesn't just fucking reverse on us again. The other thing is, like, Bitcoin's reacting quite heavily to political announcement at the moment as well. So I think this here was related to Biden announcing he was stepping down from the race. Now it just throws question marks into the market, and the market hates question marks. But it looks like they probably think that Trump is a shoe-in either way now. This is a pretty big move up. Yeah, from what I've seen over the weekend, I don't follow the politics too closely, but people seem to expect Trump to be able to beat any of the other Republicans as well. Any of the other Democrats that would potentially run. So we'll wait and see, but at the moment, crypto seems to like the idea. Nasdaq has entered the bearish control zone. Doesn't have to stay there very long, but just get rid of that pi cycle indicator now. So it does like to come into the 100 EMA on the bigger drops. So if we just go, use the 100, which would bring it into the middle of the Gaussian channel as well and back into this structure here. So I think that if we break through the 50, that's your primary target there. I'd be very surprised if it comes back to the 200 EMA on this particular pullback. That would be a massive retrace, 15% or so, whereas this one here is about 10%, which is about what you'd expect. 5 to 10%, a couple of times a year is the standard. especially in an election year. This is the pullback we've sort of been waiting for a little bit, really, before the run up. So that's where that's at. S&P 500, similar story. You're looking at this sort of structure in here as being a pretty reasonable target, which would be less than 10%. So about 7% pullback all up. Looks like a lot on this chart, but realistically, we've done that plenty of times before. As you can see, it gets close to that 100 EMA there. So I think we are pretty well overdue for that. Don't think this is the end like everyone's calling for. This is the death of the markets. Nvidia, it might be like Nvidia's finding some support on the 50 here. But it would not surprise me at all if we came down potentially even into the 200 on Nvidia, which could be in somewhere around that level. It's had a big run up, but I mean, if you proofed out this structure here, just roughly, where would you expect it to come into? Somewhere around here, so the $100 ish. Do I think it stops at $100? No, I think it would probably come back into this level here, close that gap. Lots of buying in there. So 95 is a potential target, but we really need to break below this 50 EMA for that to happen. And, you know, Nvidia could sort of chop around for a little bit and then come down as well. So the equal weight has come back down into this level, which, I mean, they're pretty strong sell at the moment, but that was also a pretty strong run up. It's interesting that the money is moving around quite quickly at the moment. So it seems like the big guys are in for a short time, taking profits and getting out. Be interesting to see if we bounce around here or whether we come right back into that 50. Not looking super strong. Pretty big turn down on the SMI. Still blue candles here though. So when they start to turn brown, then you're probably going to go into more of a chop. So IWM, pretty similar. We did say that we'd like to see a retest at this level, which is probably actually up around there. Just to close that gap on that candle. I think we should still be reaching for that 233. If markets do settle down and start to just go regularly bullish again, that's still a target. But yeah, it's interesting just the swings on these, trillion dollar sort of markets are moving in pretty big ways. In the space of 4 days, you get 10% up on the IWM, and then nearly 5% on the way down. 3 days. So shaking out some retail, I would think, at the moment. XLY, XLP suggesting weakness in the economy. Dow Jones versus gold is still ranging. This breaks to the upside of this range, then it would suggest the market's strong and gold's probably going to struggle for a bit. If it breaks to the downside, then it's suggesting the market's not great and recession would be likely. or at least a decent pullback. But this is at pretty big lows for since a while back. Yeah, as you can see, when this really breaks key levels to the downside, that's when you know shit's hitting the wall. In fact, the breakout was probably around there. So yeah, breakdown of this range here, I'd be a little worried about the overall economy. That's a signal that we're actually going a lot deeper. But for the time being, it's showing a little bit of strength here. DAX, Dixie. Dixie's sort of retesting. It's kind of in no man's land at the moment. Break to the downside. I would expect stocks and Bitcoin to go up. Break back above this 200 EMA, and you're probably going to come back up into the 105 levels. But I don't know. I don't see that happening at the moment, especially if they do cut rates. That is a freaking crazy candle. Sometimes the VIX does this, and they come out and they correct the data later, but that's weird. I wouldn't have expected that. It's the low on at 10. That's a bizarre candle. Could be a data error. But the VIX would be suggesting that, you know, we're going to come up into close to these the 20 level, which would probably, I haven't done the calcs, but it would suggest that we are going to come back down at least to the 50 EMAs on the S&P 500. Okay, if not into this sort of level here. 2-year, 10-year, still trending down. Bit of a retest of the bottom of the channel there. So that would suggest we are heading further down. When people stop worrying about this and it breaks below and they say, oh, but we're going up, nothing wrong, the economy's fine, it'll potentially come back up above, it'll invert again. And then, you know, the next time or sometime within 3 to 6 months after that initial uninversion is when we'll probably see the recession called and the overall market drop. Percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average. Look, that's a fairly strong turn down. So looks like breadth might be going away just as quickly as it came. Again, it's suggesting Wall Street just moving that money around, taking some profits and moving on. Oil broke to the downside. It's an interesting one. Typically, that would actually keep the market looking better, but this hasn't been a great analog lately. Like typically when oil's coming down, you would see the market tend to turn and go up, but the market just kept pulling up while oil was going up. So interesting that it's coming down, suggesting there's plenty of supply out there that because the economy's not going that great. Mag 7, basically the NASDAQ chart, same sort of shit. It's already down close to 10%. come back into here, wouldn't surprise me. 13.8. ASX. This will be interesting. This seems closest to its sort of retest level. So today, maybe a little bit more downside. I'd like to see a good retest of this. If we bounce off this level, then I still think we'll hit that 8,200 there. That is my target. If that confirms. And yeah, that's about it. I'll have a quick look at ETH. So Ethereum's struggling at this high volume area, which Bitcoin just didn't care about the volume levels on the way through. So it had a similar retrace in here. Is that? Sorry, I'll just look at the index. Yeah, okay. So it had a similar vector candle, retrace. This is just on the news Biden is ending his campaign. But yeah, it's still looking like struggling a little bit on the volume. Big volume area. So ETH, if it breaks above, you would expect it to come up into that 3650 area. And yeah, Bitcoin is getting close to its value area high at the moment. Yeah, it had a little pause around the high volume, but yeah, it looks like it wants to. At the moment, we've still got what, 3 hours left on this daily candle. If it closes above that Gaussian channel, then I'd be expecting at least another day of up into that value area high. Which again, if we get there, it's potentially going to break through that too, because you're getting into this wick here, into the vector candle wick. That might pull it up and see a bit of just a slight pullback to retest that value area high level. But then we've got this wick, this vector candle in here as well. So, and at which point we're pretty much back at the highs, and there is no more vector candles there once it gets to the top of this one. So if I had to throw out a guess on what's going to happen this week, we sort of churn up. It won't necessarily be a day that it'll take to do this. It could be, but wouldn't think so. And then potentially just a retrace into one of these areas, and then we go. That'll give the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and stuff time to come back as well. And you know, then once they turn around, then Bitcoin will probably be bottoming at the same time, I would think. There was one other thing. Yeah, so interestingly, we have had 2 power signals on the crypto capital indicator. So typically the power signals lead to pretty big moves. You don't want that one there. It actually got sort of cancelled out by a power sell. You don't typically see 2 of them that close together. Normally when you get a power signal, oh yeah, I guess there's 2 there as well. That would suggest that we're actually topping. Took that. If there was only 1, I'd actually be more confident based on that. Maybe I got the old one. I'll need to make sure I got the current one, but don't think there's many settings on his thing either. Anyway, just interesting that there's power signals coming through on that indicator. It's suggesting 70k is your next supply zone to hit. It has broken that previous structure as well, so it's suggesting we do travel up, which is kind of in a bit of confluence with moving up into this vector candle in here. I'd be expecting at least a bit of sideways chop, a bit of pullback in time, as they say, at the highs still, and it's trying to break out. We'll see how the momentum's stacking up, and this here for me is probably the biggest indicator at the moment. Yeah, it can stop, but it's really, if we start to get these brown candles again, it's going to suggest that it's not super strong of a breakout. Okay, so I'll just be keeping an eye on that. Global liquidity is dropping slightly as well, but it did have a pretty big run up. Still not going to any sort of breaking new highs or anything like that though, so not a huge indicator at the moment. Yeah, I was expecting more of a pullback at this point. Didn't even really hit the 382. So we'll just see if we came up into here. The pullback's potentially into this level here, the 65k level. So wouldn't be too afraid if we came back into that 65k and then moved up, which will probably be back into the top of the Gaussian channel, to be honest. Should be a pretty good springboard. Would also be back into this resistance level here too. But we'll see what happens. At the moment, still looking bullish-ish. Not huge volume over the weekend. Oh, that's a reasonable volume day for a weekend so far. Nice little pullback. See how it goes. We did, oh, that's right. We did actually get a 15-minute trade through the week that actually paid off. Memory. The 15-minute trades so infrequently. Oh, I sworn that took a trade. I think this is. Oh, that's not. That's why. This one. 15 minutes actually didn't take a trade. This. This is the wrong fucking chart. That's why. Let's try this one. Yeah, a little trade on the way up here or there or something. Ah, there it is. Oh, it's actually. Oh, fucking slam. I didn't notice that. What a prick. That was the frickin' Biden thing. Screwed it. Otherwise, it was looking like a good breakout. It's just fucking annoying. It's not taking these ones, which is just the confluence settings on it. And that was profitable trade, but that sucks ass on a double entry too. Mother. Hate to see that going exactly in our favour too. Jesus. It's not pretty. What a shitty market. You look at this indicator, the freaking stats on it, and it's just in the last month. Kind of shit. Normally gets some pretty decent trade. Anyway, that'll do for today. Catch us.